President Trump appears to be walking back comments he made regarding Kim Jong Un and American college student Otto Warmbier. On Twitter Friday, the president wrote, quote, "I never like being misinterpreted, but especially when it comes to Otto Warmbier and his great family. Remember, I got Otto out along with 3 others. The previous administration did nothing, and he was taken on their watch. Of course, I hold North Korea responsible for Otto's mistreatment and death. Most important, Otto Warmbier will not have died in vain." Warmbier was an American college student who was imprisoned in North Korea and died days after being returned to the U.S. The president's tweets come after he made these remarks at a press conference Thursday following his summit with Kim Jong Un.
I don't believe that he would have allowed that to happen. It just wasn't to his advantage to allow that to happen. Those prisons are rough. They're rough places, and bad things happened. But I really don't believe that he was, I don't believe he knew about it.
Did he tell you that he did not, did Kim Jong Un tell you?
He felt badly about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly. He knew the case very well, but he knew it later. And, you know, you got a lot of people, a big country, a lot of people. And in those prisons and those camps, you have a lot of people. And some really bad things happened to Otto. Some really, really bad things.
Why are you willing to call him?
He tells me that he didn't know about it. And I will take him at his word.
Let's bring in CBSN political contributors Antjuan Seawright and Michael Graham. Antjuan is a Democratic strategist and CEO of Blueprint Strategy, and Michael is a conservative columnist for the Boston Herald and politics editor for nhjournal.com. Michael and Antjuan, welcome to both of you. So great to have you with us. Michael, let me start with you. What is your reaction to the president's initial comments and then what appears to be a walkback?
Well, my reaction, and I think it's significant that if you were reading conservative media today, it was a reaction across the board, from the Bill Kristol anti-Trump types to the more Trump-friendly environs, which is stop saying you believe Kim Jong Un. The guy is a killer dictator. And that was so off-putting. I saw very few people even trying to defend it. What Trump defenders say is, look at the policy. According to the reporting we've seen, the sanctions that the Kim negotiators really wanted Trump to pull back on and they wanted to cut a deal on were the post-2016 sanctions. In other words, the Trump sanctions targeting the North Korean economy. Apparently, they're biting. But the fact that you have biting sanctions in no way dismisses the notion of standing up on worldwide TV and saying, I believe the dictator of the story of a dead American who was essentially tortured to death. Makes no sense. There's no win there for Trump at all.
But, Michael, I just want to point out we have seen this before with the president, namely with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Russian President Vladimir Putin. So it's not as if, you know, people can say, wow, this is the first time President Trump has, you know, excused these dictators. So how do these types of comments play with his base?
So one thing that you hear a lot from Trump supporters, particularly talk radio listeners, is, hey, Trump is talking because words don't matter. So what does he care what you say to Putin? What do you care what you say to Kim Jong Un? If you get something good, if you get them to change their policy, if you get them to cooperate on terrorism, whatever. And so that's how Trump defenders dismiss it. I think they're wrong. I think that these images of the president of the United States, theoretically the leader of the free world, standing next to a murderous dictator who killed one of his citizens are terrible. But that's the case that Trump supporters make.
All right. So, Antjuan, I want to get your take on this because I'm curious how you think Democrats should proceed. Clearly, you know, he came back from the summit without a deal, though he was praised by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle for that. They said, we're glad he didn't make a deal with Kim Jong Un under these circumstances. But these comments have put him in some hot water. So how do you think Democrats should proceed?
They should not be surprised. This is par for the course for this president. For some reason, he enjoys playing footsie and cuddling and flirting with dictator types like the little rocket man, like Putin on the world stage, or yet his campaign talks about being America first. This is not putting America first. And so it's very unfortunate. And what it does, it says more about Donald Trump and his line of thinking and where he intends for America to be considered versus what we all know America should be. Never, ever should the leader of the free world sell out or sell America down the river for any thought of particularly a dictator like Little Rocket Man. And to say that he does not know what's going on in his country, he's a dictator. So of course he knows what's going on in his country, and that's unfortunate.
And it does sound like he got some additional information about what happened to Otto Warmbier, because he did elaborate and sort of say horrible things happened to him, but what were those horrible things? Anyway, I do wonder, though, if for Democrats this is sort of a sideshow and not the main show. Do they have other things that they want to worry about right now?
Well, I think you have to pay attention because, again, these things happen, and they, I think, are a preview of what and how the president can behave or perform in the future. However, I'm not sure the Democrats should get distracted by the big picture things that really are front, forth, and center here in the United States. And so we can't take our eye off the ball. However, we have the ability to walk and chew gum at the same time, and I think we have to make sure we do that effectively.
Who was the congresswoman that said that during the hearing,
from
the Cohen
Virgin
hearing?
Islands, yeah.
Very good.
I mean, she was good. Her Twitter video went viral.
Maybe Michael can remember, but it was a good one. But Michael, so on Twitter Friday morning, President Trump once again slammed his former personal attorney, Michael Cohen. Speaking of the Cohen testimony, he called Cohen a liar and accused him of lying before Congress earlier this week. We know he's lied before Congress before. He's been convicted for that, but now, he's being accused of lying again.
Right.
Michael, how are Republican voters reacting to all of this?
So I spent the afternoon after the hearing talking to Trump supporters across the country, particularly in early primary states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and to a person, they are sticking with Trump. They dismiss Michael Cohen as a liar, which, let's face it, is pretty easy to do for a guy who's literally going to prison for lying. And this is what's interesting to me, and I think it presents a challenge for the people in the Republican Party who want to break their party away from Trump, but also for Democrats and how they approach Trump. The people who like Donald Trump are not prepared to say what seems so obvious, which is he's not a very good person, but I like how he is president. In other words, you can make a case for the way he acts as president is the right way, and he's tough, and he's focused on the big issues, and he fights back, and he represents those forgotten blue-collar workers. Agree, disagree, that's an argument that people understand. It's I think he's an honest guy, or I don't believe that he engaged in this behavior. But that is where so many of the Trump supporters that I talk to are. They simply dismiss the accusations out of hand.
So you're saying that, you can attack the president's character all you want. His supporters already know his character is a little suspect, but they just like his politics.
What I'm saying is it's even interesting more than that. They like the politics, and many of them will not concede the ground on the character. They say, no, it's all Michael Cohen. It's all the women. They're all lying. And I'm like, really? All of them? And that just shows that what President Trump has with his base is not an ideological connection. It's not a political connection. It's a personal connection.
Right.
They feel like
it's a good point.
They've been ignored.
He has a
Obama
connection.
ignored him, and he's on their side.
Antjuan, Michael is correct. Whether or not you agree with that, he is correct. He has a very, very sort of intimate bond almost with his base. So how should Democrats proceed then?
Let me tell you how I describe it. I think the Trump supporters are definitely drunk off the Trump Kool-Aid, and he enjoys throwing them the red meat right-wing rhetoric to keep them jacked up and juiced up off the Kool-Aid. However, I think Democrats have to be careful. Yes, you can criticize the Trump on policy, but we also have to not get into a personality fight with him, because that's what he wants. That's what he enjoys, because it takes the eye off of the failures from his point from a policy perspective. The most interesting thing about the hearing the other day is how the Republicans wanted to attack Cohen as a person, but they could not attack any of the information he brought in the hearing because it was 100% true.
Right.
It's very unfortunate.
Well,
for the people who criticize him for being a liar, the president lies to the American people every single day. The Washington Post has done a good job of keeping track of the number of lies he's told.
But never under oath.
We don't know.
Right.
we don't know.
Right.
We don't know.
We don't know. That's true. That part we don't know. But for Democrats who are focused on impeachment, is that the right road? I mean, it seems like the president is vulnerable on various fronts. Is that really the road to attack?
I've been very consistent with this, and I do not agree with the idea of impeachment to this point. In fact, I think it gives Trump supporters a reason to go rah-rah and rally. Instead, again, I think we need to be talking about things that Democrats are for. I think we need to be on the offensive. We need to be executing the plays that we drew up in the midterms that allowed us to be in the majority. And I think we cannot get distracted and get away from a policy discussions and policy prescriptions and get into personality. Trump thrives off chaos, confusion, anger.
Right.
His supporters do the same. We can't get into that. We have to really stay focused on policy and really responding to what the needs of the American people are.
Michael, I just want to get your take once again on Michael Cohen and all the Republican lawmakers who continue to call him a liar and are even, stating that he committed perjury again recently and are looking for more criminal charges. It seems to me and to most observers, he's already been convicted for lying. That statement, the truth will set you free. At this point, he has no reason to continue to lie. And in fact, he'll just get himself into hotter water. So, does that talking point then work from Republicans continuing to just call him a liar?
This is one of those cases where actually no, Michael Cohen lied. He lied about wanting to work in the White House and told pretty much everybody in the media that he wanted to work in the White House. He didn't get the job. Why? But who cares? I think the guts of the essence of your question is correct. How is this a winning topic for Republicans at all? Just move on. Trump is Trump. The way that Trump wins again, if he does, is because, for example, in New Hampshire, they just got the word, the lowest unemployment rate in the country, the fastest growth in the region, across America, the economy. If it's interesting, the Wall Street Journal had some people on the left of center saying, this pretty much is probably as good as an economy can get in the modern era. And that's what you've got. Why they spend any time talking about anything else except this. On the issue of North Korea, I think there's a legitimate argument that says that the North Koreans are still testing things when they can. They have no interest in denuking. I agree, that's completely true. But President Trump has gotten them to at least stop doing it in the air. He's had some impact on their behavior. Those are policy things, but as Antjuan, and he's very smart, because like me, he grew up in Lexington County, South Carolina, so he's very smart, pointed out, and Trump loves these fights. He loves these personal fights. They rebond him with his emotionally invested base, and I think this is a big mistake for Democrats.
Antjuan, you're saying don't indulge him, but I want to get your take on what Michael was saying earlier, because yes, the economy is doing well, but we know that a lot of Americans are not necessarily feeling that.
Well, the economy is doing well for some, but the economy is not doing well for all, and it's the argument of the have versus the have-nots. Traditionally, the haves are always going to do well when things are going good, but we have not allowed the economy, the trickle-down has not happened, so there are communities that I call the have-nots are being left out, and for that reason, the Republicans cannot own this argument of having these discussions saying that the economy is booming and doing well. And to the Republicans who want to run on that notion, remember you all said the same during the course of the midterms, and what was the number one issue? Healthcare. Why? Because millions of people in this country are still fighting for their lives. They're still fighting for access to affordable quality health care. And quality of life things will run the day. And that's why I'm so proud of what the Congress is doing on the Democratic side, passing legislation that they talked about in the midterms. And I think that is what is going to define the 2020 election. I think,
Michael, Antjuan really does have a point, because a lot of Americans read the news and they say, the economy is doing better. That's interesting. Why don't I see it? That's what how a lot of Americans respond. So, all right. So I just want to, this next question is for both of you. How do you see these issues of the Russia investigation, the impending Mueller report, investigations into the president and his associates all playing out in the 2020 campaign? Is it going to be about all of that, or is it going to be about the issues? Michael, you first.
Well, I think that Republicans would love it if Democrats talk about Mueller and Russia and stuff that's not related to real people's lives. I mean, Antjuan was right to talk about health care. Health care is a problem. I just want to put something on the record, though. You cannot criticize this economy unless you're going to go back and criticize literally every economy we've had in the past. It's reached more people. It's gone lower to blue-collar workers. Manufacturing jobs have gone up. The Wall Street Journal reported today for 18 months in a row. We have 100 months of job growth. I mean, I agree that you're always going to have some people that are left out. This is the best economy since I've been alive. And so if Republicans can talk about that, they win. If Democrats talk about Mueller, they don't win. That's how Republicans view it.
Antjuan, you wanted to respond to that.
Yeah. While the economy is doing well for some, it's not doing well for all. And guess what? People's quality of life has not improved during this economy. I'll give you a prime example. There are people in rural America, South Carolina, where we live. Forget about trying to make ends meet. They're putting two ends together, hoping they will meet. You have teachers working 2 or 3 jobs. You have single parents who are trying to raise a family and buy milk and buy diapers and doing all those things in Trump's economy, and it's not going well, not to mention rising healthcare costs, not to mention all the other things they're competing with. And so while you all want to blow the horn about things are so good, they're not good enough to do victory laps about.
All right. In other campaign 2020 news, Washington Governor Jay Inslee entered the race on Friday. Antjuan, I want to get your take first on his strengths and weaknesses. It's my understanding he's pretty much a one-issue candidate. It's the climate change issue. And frankly, I know a lot of people, my husband included, who would vote on that one issue. Is that a strong enough platform?
Well, it's something to talk about, but I think the governor's going to have to come with more than just the issue of climate change, because while climate change is a very important issue and we can't ignore it, there are people, as I just talked about, who are looking for quality of life answers, like how they simply buy groceries, how you pay the light bill, how you pay daycare, how you just simply put gas in your car. There are people who have those concerns, and then there are people who are worried about why their child's education quality is determined by their zip code. They're the little Antjuan Seawrights of the world, first generation college student who's more concerned about how I'm going to pay a student loan bill, or if I decide to go to college, I will have some of the highest college bills that I've ever had in generations. So those are those answers. The other thing about the governor's weaknesses, I think, is that he's going to have a math problem in the South. I mean, while he is well respected in his part of the country and he's done an incredible job as governor, the heart and soul of the Democratic Party, African Americans, do not know him. And so he's going to spend majority of his time trying to introduce himself. And like every other candidate, he has to find his Southern groove in the most important state in the Democratic primary, and that's South Carolina.
All right, so let's talk about a candidate that voters do know. Let's talk about former Vice President Joe Biden. We hear he's getting closer to making a decision about a 2020 run. Michael, I'm curious whether you think that he would pose the biggest challenge to Republicans.
You know, that's an interesting question. I think he poses the biggest challenge to his fellow Democratic primary voters. To me, the most salient data point in all the polling that I've seen is that Democrats want to pick someone who can beat Trump. And they believe that Joe Biden can beat Trump. And that's why they're judging everybody. I think that's one reason why you've seen Elizabeth Warren's support fade from in the 20s last year down to in single digits today, is that people are concerned watching her campaign that she's just not up for the job. And so that's when Biden comes in, as I wrote today for NHJournal.com, he bigfoots the primary. I don't know that it's the case that one-on-one against Trump, he in fact is the best candidate. I think the Democrats, in my personal opinion, can do better with someone who's younger and dynamic and really energizes millennial and Gen Z voters. But hey, I ran Republican campaigns for a living, so
Right.
I don't really accused of getting something wrong here.
So, Antjuan, what's your take on Joe Biden? Do you think he could take the nomination?
Well, in South Carolina, we had this saying that was coined in the Obama primary in 2008, and it was fired up, ready to go. I think voters are fired up and ready for Joe. I think a lot of people believe that Joe Biden is the one person in our party that could pull the many corners of the Democratic Party together, but also he could serve as the glue to pull our country back together, because we've been pulled apart politically in so many ways, and it's not who America is. And I think that's the unique thing about America's uncle, Joe Biden. He's the guy that we think can do the job. But I tell you, the key for Joe Biden is being able to prove to voters that he can not only beat Donald Trump, but he has to do step one, and that's prove that he can connect with the needs and concerns of the Democratic primary voters, particularly African-American voters. When you have a qualified African-American female, a Latino candidate, and an African-American male in the race, not to mention a record number of women running for the first time in our party. I mean, he's got some work to do on first base before he can talk about going to second base. And so my challenge is to Uncle Joe is it's time for you to put on your jersey and come off the sideline.
But it sounds to me like you're saying that he could be the strongest candidate if he gets that work done.
Well, it's very early, and I think you have to take early polls for what they are. But in most of the early state polls, he is the leading candidate. Now, there's a danger in that, is that you have no way to go, possibly, but down when you start out very high. And I saw this firsthand when I worked for Secretary Clinton in 2008. She started out very high in the polls, and then she went down very quickly.
You don't want to peak too early sometimes.
That's right.
Mike Tyson says peak at the right time.
Exactly. Antjuan Seawright and Michael Graham, thanks to both of you. Fabulous chat. Thanks for being on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.